Well, it's very nice to be here. I've been asked to sing a verse and chorus of a little marching song of mine the boys adopted more or less during the war. I don't have to tell you I'm not much of a vocalist, but I'll do the best I can with it. So we'll just imagine for the moment we're back in 1917 and the orders from the front. Forward march, Doctor. Johnny, get your gun, get your gun, get your gun. Take it on the run, on the run, on the run. Hear them calling, you and me, every son of liberty. Hurry right away, don't delay, go to make your daddy glad to have had such a lad. And tell your sweetheart not to win, to be proud her boys in line. Over there, send the word over there, that the Yanks are coming, the Yanks are coming, the drums coming everywhere. So prepare, say a prayer, send the word to beware. We'll be over, we're coming over, and we won't come back till it's over there. Say a prayer, send the word to beware. We'll be over, we're coming over, and we won't come back till it's over there.
Hi there, I'm Matt Yancic. I am the founder and head game master of Manufactured Myth and Legerdemain. Welcome to episode 5 of the FiERCE BRooD. This is an RPG actual play of historic fiction. So in each episode we blend actual locations, events, and historic figures from Boston of 1918 with a fictional story and fictional characters of our own creation. Those that watch and listen at home might notice quite a few historic Easter eggs, shall we call them, planted throughout the story. So don't be afraid to speak up in the chat when you do. It's all part of the fun. So as always, I'm joined by some trusted allies and very good friends. Please say hello to them. Let's start off with Steve, who is actually to my left and your right. Can you tell us a little bit about who you'll be playing and maybe even who you are?
Well, good evening, everybody. I'm Steve, and tonight, as I have been for the past few weeks, I will be portraying Ezekiel Z. Brewster, who is a member, or was a member of a Boston Brahmin family. And due to some circumstances, which we'll explore in game, he was kicked out of that circle. And after hopping around from foster homes, ended up in the seminary and is studying to be a Catholic priest.
Cool.
In society, according to the rules, I am a skeptical speaker who keeps a magical ally who's a little kitty named Mars.
Excellent. Thank you very much, James. And last but not least, we have Frank off on the left-hand side of the screen. Frank, can you tell us a little bit about yourself and your character?
Sure. I'm Frank, online from Western New York these days. And just before this, we were chatting as a group and of poetry.
Oh, no.
Teaching poetry came up. So I came up with a very short, quick poem to describe my character. So if
Ladies and gentlemen, this is live, a live broadcast. This has not been rehearsed. We're all equally shocked by this. Take it away, Frank.
Here we go. I'm Francis Frank Murphy, and I'm here to say that I'm a night watchman in South Boston. Worked part-time at Fenway. I met some strangers, faced some dangers. Now I'm far away in Vagaver. Now, actually, my character is both thick in stature and in mind. So the resilient part of my description just means I'm a little bit dense and can take more damage than most people.
Okay.
We'll see how that turns out.
Yeah, we'll find out. We'll find out. Thank you guys very much for that. And now, just to give you a rundown on what has come before, in prior episodes of the Fierce Brood are 4 unlikely heroes: the seminarian, calling himself Z, the composer turned con man named Vesper, the field scientist by the name of Dietrich, and the ex-policeman turned night watchman called Murphy, were drawn together by fate to Gate C of Fenway Park on September 11th of 1918 while watching the 6th game of the World Series featuring the Boston Red Sox versus the Chicago Cubs. Summoned with messages in the form of fragmented stained glass stones, the 4 combined them like puzzle pieces and were sent on an interdimensional trip to a mysterious underground world. There, our heroes found themselves between a rock and a hard place. Harold Coatsworth III, a member of the Watch and Ward Society, faced off against Leonard Cloudy, a representative of the Society for the Preservation of New England Antiquities. Each man lay claim to a young boy by the name of Pascal, who wielded powers the likes of which none had ever seen before. Caught in the middle, our heroes ultimately sided with Cloudy and Pascal and made a hasty escape by means of a mind-altering substance, a pinch of snuff with psychedelic properties that allowed them to bend time and space to their will. But upon returning to Boston with their newfound charges, they discovered that time had passed. According to newspapers, Game 6 of the series was over. It was no longer September 11th of 1918, and the influenza pandemic had spread, and the Great War was predicted to end soon. The world had, in their absence, moved on. Coatsworth, however, was not far behind, and before they had time to consider what had happened, their enemy pursued them down Boylston Street to the Boston Public Library. There they faced off against the villain and his minions, a pair of snarling skin dogs, vile canine-like creatures wrapping themselves in the rotting skin of humans. Another showdown ensued, and the group fled into an underground tunnel leading to the crypts beneath the Old North Church in the north end of Boston. There, our heroes uncovered the final resting place of 3 figures from Boston's past. Brick by brick, they opened a crypt containing the corpses of John and Alice Childs and their daughter, Elizabeth. The corpses, however, seemed anything but at rest. Huddled together in a corner, knees to their chests, the weathered and desiccated corpses actually appeared to breathe. Pascal, seemingly unsurprised, soothed them while Leonard Cloudy explained that, far from dead, these 3 were actually in a deep hibernation. A quick application of the exotic, mind-altering substance, the snuff, began their slow but sure resuscitation. The heroes agreed to escort their 5 charges to their final destination. Once again, each inhaled a small dose of the mind-altering snuff, and every molecule of the world around them began to shift and vibrate. A doorway above opened up, revealing a dark sky filled by an aurora. Entering, time and space bent and warped around them. Transported, they traveled through the aurora and soon below them saw 4 enormous concentric rings at various angles to each other, surrounding a small moon. The outermost ring was dark and covered in rock and snow-capped mountains. Moving inward, the next ring was covered in swirling spherical seas and oceans that hang like pearls on a necklace. Moving inward still, the next ring was dry, arid desert covered in great mesas and trees a dozen miles high. The 4th and final ring, the innermost ring, and the one they sped toward, appeared to be an enormous leafy vine. Many of the leaves were covered in tiny pinpricks of flickering light that, upon closer inspection, revealed themselves to be the structures of towns, villages, and even a few cities. The leaf they head to, rotting around the edges, was the brightest of all and appeared in the shape of their hometown of Boston, except instead of being surrounded by the waters of the Charles River and Massachusetts Bay, there was only the empty air. As they landed, they find themselves on the shores of what would have been the North End. Around them lie the remains of wooden ships, broken and battered on the shores of this organic island made from, of all things, an enormous leaf. Looking up, they see before them a lighthouse. Cloudy led the way, moving quickly with Pascal, who seemed at ease. They make their way to the lighthouse and, inside, find 4 human-looking individuals surrounding a pool table lined with green velvet. A man with a bushy white mustache, a shock of wild white hair, and a white suit to match, greeted them in the hospitable accent of a Southern gentleman. His companions, 2 awkward-looking men dressed in dark suits, and a woman bent over a desk writing, remain silent. And it is here that we find our heroes tonight, one very late night in October of 1918, on an enormous leaf shaped like the city of Boston, located on a giant living vine on the 4th ring of an exotic and alien world. And so now, I turn the game over to my players and breathe a sigh of relief as the monologue is over and we can actually get down to sort of playing. So would you gentlemen like to add anything to that description, or perhaps talk amongst yourselves for a moment to get your bearings? Please feel free.
Can we clarify how many other people in the room again? What do Pascal and Coatsworth doing? I'm sorry, Cloudy doing, and have the childs fully recovered yet? Are they still in the process of recovering?
Yeah, absolutely, we can do that. So looking around the room, I will remind you that it appears as if, even though you have entered a lighthouse, it appears as if you're almost in a room not unlike a gentleman's club. The air is kind of hazy and filled with a cigar smoke, and the Southern gentleman appears to be puffing on a cigar, which leaves a whiff of that snuffy sort of substance in the air. The 4 people in the room are, again, the Southern gentleman in his white suit, the 2 other rather thinner-looking gentlemen in dark suits, and a woman who sits at a desk writing. Now, your companions, the 3 members of the child's family, John, Alice, and their daughter Elizabeth, seem to have relatively recovered. Looking at them, their skin, they look like they need a lot of moisturizer, let's just put it that way, but they look a heck of a lot better than the desiccated corpses which you encountered perhaps an hour to an hour and a half before. The child has run up to the Southern gentleman and embraced him, greeted him, and the couple behind you kind of stand off to the side as if they haven't fully recovered, but they're coming back. And then beside you is Cloudy, who seems basically at ease in the way that perhaps the employee of a large company might be at ease in the big boss's office. Does that kind of answer your question, or?
Yeah, I think so.
Okay. Anyone else?
No, as I recall, we coming upon this coming into the lighthouse are all basically agog over all of this unusual stuff. The pool table, the crows, there are crows flying around.
That is correct. These
folks chatting amongst themselves, the undead walking again and getting better. It's all a bit befuddling.
Yeah.
But all in a day's work.
Maybe. I mean, for you as a night watchman, an ex-police officer, and maybe more specifically a Southie, maybe this is kind of all in a day's work. Yeah, for you. I would like to add, however, that even though we've played, and this will be our 5th game, this is all, the events of this game have so far transpired almost within about 12 something hours. So it would probably be fair to say that you're all quite exhausted and famished at this point.
Totally.
Excellent.
All right. So I'll address the Southern gentleman and say, we've come a long way uh, in assisting Pascal and Cloudy. Can somebody shed some light as to what's going on here?
The Southern gentleman, who a few moments before had made a remark towards Edgar, the gentleman with the raven flying around through the lighthouse, looks up from embracing the child and looks at you. And for a moment, you may think to yourself that he's about to chew you out just as he's chewed Edgar out, but then his face turns happy. And whispering something in the child's ear, he stands, moves over to you, and holds out his hand to shake. I do say, sir, I do say it is good to meet you.
All right, I'll extend my hand out and shake.
He's got a strong handshake there. It has been a while since I've seen a man of the world, well, my world, if I might say, but I must say, I am relieved to see you and your companions here. I do believe we owe you a great debt of gratitude, my friends.
Well, gratitude is fine. An explanation is really what we'd really like.
Yes, it's always confusing when you first move to the other world. It's always quite confusing, but all will be answered in time. If you'll hold on for just a moment, I'd like to have a word, but please, I urge you. And he gestures towards some beautifully upholstered couches on, in the center of the room. If you'll just have a seat here for a moment, I'll be attending to you very quickly. Please. Oh, and by the way, feel free to indulge yourself. And he points to some bottles and glasses sitting on the table in front of these couches. And then he kind of whisks off to go back to the pool table. And he kind of you can kind of see by his body language that he's got some harsh gestures that he throws in the direction of Edgar and the other gentleman who he is now talking to.
Before he can turn away, to just connect with him with my eyes and say, just thank you, I'll stand. And I'll just immediately turn, walk to the table, pick up a glass and a bottle for myself, and address my newfound peers to say, oh, yeah, we sniffed the powder and here we are. Is this a shared illusion, or have we truly traveled to some alternate ring world? And I wonder which is the more plausible.
So as you do make eye contact with him, he tips an invisible hat to you, and he gives you a smile just as friendly as he gave when Z, the seminarian, spoke. And you, at least as far as you can tell, you garner no ill will from this gesture. And he does indeed move over, and he is now engaged in talking with the other two gentlemen by the pool table. Cloudy walks over to the table to the couches as if this were completely fine. And he sits down at these couches, and you can hear his body as it eases down into the creaking leather. And the young girl, Elizabeth, steps over by his side and just waits by him while the boy next to the little girl is trying to chat with this little girl. The two couple seems to be having a slightly more difficult time. They step over and they're trying to sort of make their way, but they're still having some trouble moving and getting their bearings. And they try to take a seat at these leathery couches, but they're having some trouble, it seems, with their coordination. You're free to speak, or we can kind of fast forward to when he's coming back, or you can do something else.
What else is in the room?
Looking around the room, what you see are a lot of bookcases, a lot of stacks of journals, notebooks, You see quite a few other desks. There seems to be one main desk, and that is where the woman sits writing. And now, just to sort of be more specific here, she's writing by hand. She is using a pen, but it's not like a typewriter sort of deal. And then over off in kind of in the center is the pool table. Is there anything specifically you're looking for?
Definitely different things of writing. So the bookcases are interesting. So I may grab a drink and just kind of nonchalantly walk over to the bookcase.
You get the feeling that you could go ahead and do that if you wanted to. You do take a drink, walk over to a bookcase. No one stops you. Is there anyone else that would like to do something?
I want to. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
Z's up.
All right. I want to chat with these guys, and Matt, I'm not sure how we want to approach this, but I think I recognize that man from my studies.
Which
Yeah,
man?
he's on a box of chicken.
Did a lot of studying of that.
He's on a box of chicken, man.
Anachronism. I'm taking one XP away for that.
Uh-oh. TBDs
Not in
was
my
an XP.
game. Not in my
Minus
study.
one TBD.
That's right.
That's fine.
No,
That was a good
I've-
joke.
There are
That
consequences.
is a very good joke. Very
Yeah,
good
that's
joke.
worth it.
I've read his works, and I don't know if I told you guys, but I suspect we're somewhere between life and death. Because if that man is who I think he is, he died in 1910.
8 years ago?
That's Mark Twain.
I just do the slow sidelong.
Yeah, absolutely.
Hey, Vesper,
telling
what's in that bottle? Is that whiskey?
I need to find out if that's what Zed said is true when I take a deep draft of whatever it is I grab. I was figuring wine, but I don't know.
I was hoping for bourbon myself.
Is that an identify sort of thing? Yeah,
Oh yeah, I identify my beverage.
Make a roll. Okay, first roll of the night, ladies and gentlemen.
It's a 4.
I was.
I don't know, but it's pretty tasty.
It's very
Murphy.
sweet of you to have believed me when I said that. However, I was just kidding. You can identify various.
I just really wanted to use my identify skill that I have.
Oh, would you like to?
Frank really set me up for it.
I did.
Yeah, I rolled a
If-
4. It was really bad.
It's
What you can tell is that there are some earthly drinks, but there are a heck of a lot of other drinks there that you don't recognize. Bottles with labels you don't recognize, except for one detail. On several of the bottles, there is a scratchy sort of writing that seems to be the same writing that you found in the crypt back at the Old North Church. Ladies and gentlemen, everyone's dead silent. There's no more joking now, is there?
Yep.
I gotta tighten this up.
That's the
That
kind
might
of writing
be
I was looking
curious
for in
to
the book
other
set.
folks in this party, but not to me. I'm just going to stretch over to that couch and start opening bottles to see if I can smell any whiskey. Because as far as my internal clock can tell, the Red Sox game started between 1 and 2 p.m., and it's feeling past midnight by my body, and I just need something after this day. So I'm going to rifle through them and just try and find something palatable to my fine night watchman palate.
With the exception of some of those drinks that I mentioned before, you are able to find just about any kind of liquor or beverage that you've been looking for. And you're able to mix up whatever kind of cocktail or
Yes.
even taking a look at it. There are a few there are a few labeled beers in there. But again, you would recognize this, Murphy, because you had taken a look at that scratchy handwriting as well. There are labels with this odd writing on it.
Indecipherable.
Yeah.
Any of the books have that same writing.
So taking a look at the books, yes, a lot of them have titles that you don't exactly recognize, but they are the sort of things that you might have found during your scholarly studies as a field researcher. And in addition to those, though, there are many books, and now that you're all kind of aware of it and talking about it, there are quite a few books which, down the spine, have this rather odd writing on them.
Okay. If we feel like we have a minute
You do.
before he comes back,
Those guys are talking over there.
Yeah.
all right, then I can use a new skill called Cipher, which allows me to spend a minute examining any written code or language not known, have an intellect D3 test, and get the gist of the writing.
Oh, I like this. So just
Yeah.
for the viewers at home, the basic rules of Cipher system are that the game master and the player decide on the stat to use for a task to accomplish it. Once this happens, I, as the game master, decide on a task difficulty. Now, the task difficulty is usually rated 1 through 10 and multiplied by 3. So the player then attempts to ease the task using either a skill, an asset, or a level of effort to reduce this number from 1 to 10. And then once this has sort of been negotiated through, the player goes ahead and rolls to try to beat that number. So you said that you acquired a new skill. Was this, or was it an ability?
It's an ability
Okay.
that allows me to perform the Cipher action.
Okay. So you want to grab one of these books and try to decipher what it is that is written within them.
Yep.
Okay.
It's difficulty 3, so I want to definitely use 1 level of effort.
Okay.
And I want to use maybe an asset of the other books or other samples of the writing that we have to kind of compare it to what I think the English equivalent would be.
I like this. Here's what I'm going to say to add to that. I'm going to say that there's a section of books where it looks like there's an English volume next to a volume that's written in whatever this language is. And you can kind of see how the bookshelf is actually set up in that way. A lot of the books have a companion book in English. And so by taking a look back and forth, you can kind of make an educated guess. So far it looks like you've got that ability. You've also given me basically an asset by saying that, okay, there's a second book for everything. Is there something else, like an level of effort that you'd like to apply?
Level of effort was the first one. What did you say?
Was it? I'm sorry. So I had
effort, the asset, and then maybe the identify skill.
Right. Okay, got it. So that's 3 then. So go ahead and make your roll.
14.
I'm not going to say it's perfect, but you find a couple of volumes which are, one, they confirm, well, they draw an interesting connection. You find a copy of Tom Sawyer, which has a companion volume written in the language of what you assume is the local language. And looking back and forth between the 2 books, you're not completely on solid ground here, but you get a general idea of maybe what a few of the words are. And suddenly, some of the books, the spines, start to make a little bit of sense. And the interesting thing about this is not that these titles are written in a standard sort of language. The interesting thing is the way in which they're written. When you look sort of left and then right and up and down, the lettering themselves almost seem 3-dimensional. And they change a bit depending on the angle. And you realize that the way that the words are read depends on the angle. And you actually have to move your head perhaps from left to right to get the full meaning of the words out of them. So now taking a look at the spines, you can see that there are the works of quite a few classical, what we would call classical authors. You see more works by Mark Twain, works by H.P. Lovecraft, Interestingly, you see a few works by Nathaniel Hawthorne, a few works by Edgar Allan Poe, Ralph Waldo Emerson, Emily Dickinson, Henry David Thoreau, and a few others that you don't really recognize, but they seem to be Earth authors. But in addition to this, you start to see other works by authors you've never heard of. And now these names are in no sort of, they are in this language that you've just kind of slightly deciphered, and you can kind of sound out some of the names, but it's no one that you recognize. But it looks like what you've got here in this particular bookshelf are books, classical works of literature written by authors either from Earth or from some other place you've never heard of.
All right, that was cool. That's all I wanted. Does it feel like I could maybe try again sometime and to get better?
It feels like maybe with some experience you could.
Right.
Yes, anybody who practices enough at something can get better over time. Is there anything else you gentlemen wanted to do while?
Yes.
I think sorry, Frank, if you want to go ahead. I just want to talk to Zed some more about what he
Yeah,
thought.
you guys talk about heady stuff. This brown liquid I found is pretty good. But I'm going to see if I can find us guys some food, because my stomach is grumbling something fierce. So I'm gonna see what I can come up with.
There's kind of a party buffet off in a corner if you want to go over and just make a pig out of yourself and dig in.
Yeah,
Nobody's stopping you.
I'm in. I'm going.
So
Feast time, boys.
Zed and Vesper are free to chat with a lot of
Bring a plate
sounds.
back. No, I fill that glass pretty full. I take a big old swig, and it like right then kind of hits me how we've been running and everything that's been happening. So I go and slump onto this couch, but I'm eyeballing the Colonel / Mark Twain, and I just I'm shaking my head in disbelief. I've got the wine in one hand, the bottle in the other, and I'm like, is he all the way up from Hartford? What is going on? After all we've done and seen today, is this what finally breaks my mind, Zed?
I don't know, Vesper, but I'm telling you, he died. We're somewhere. I suspect we're in purgatory, or some kind of maybe, I hope not, some layer of hell. But I don't remember dying. But I've seen the dead come back to life, and I see a man who died 8 years ago. I shook his hand.
Whoa! And I brought a plate back. He's not dead. He's perfectly alive right over there.
That man is alive.
Yes.
That man is alive. The one from the world that he talked about, our world, he died.
Are we adrift in time?
I don't know. I think maybe we should confirm the suspicion.
By all means.
You know?
At your earliest convenience.
Yeah, I'm not great with social interactions.
Very well then. Ahoy, Twain!
He hears that for a moment, and he it seems like he does a bit of a double take, and then the two gentlemen that he's actually speaking to tap him on the shoulder and point to you, and he turns and he waves his cigar in your general direction as if to say, I'll be over there in a moment. Then he turns back to his two companions and he continues to discuss something.
Then I will kind of nudge Vesper and point to the lady at the desk.
Hey, yeah, let's
That's
go
no,
see.
she is not Mark Twain.
No, but maybe she controls the food in this room. This spread's pretty good, but I would like some tasty cakes.
So
or even some Oreo cookies.
As this is happening, Twain, the man that you refer to as Twain, I should add, seems to wind down the conversation, and the two gentlemen in their black suits, and they're rather, one of them is taller than the other. The one not named Edgar appears to be taller than the other. They start to exit the room, and as they do so, they look to both of you and give you a very polite nod. And as they exit the room, so too does the Raven, which had been unfortunately sitting on the pool table the entire time, pecking away, and it continues after the two of them as they leave the room. With that, the gentleman who you are now referring to as Twain then goes over to the woman behind the desk, has a seat on it, and puffing on his cigar, converses with her for just a moment before she leans back in her chair, sighs, and then exits the room. She does not even give you a sideways glance, does not even acknowledge that you're in the room. And Twain, there seems to be nothing, there's no anger as she leaves, but she just simply seems to have left without any explanation. And
did she leave her writing behind, or did she take it with her?
That's a wonderful question. Let's just say that you might not have noticed.
Okay.
Well, you know what?
Oh, I don't know about that.
Yeah. Okay. Here we go. Leave it to Jared to call the game master on that one. Let's just say this. Make a roll to see if you observe. You notice that she's having this discussion. You notice that she's making the sort of movements that a person that's about to like close things up and leave it would make. Go ahead and roll and let me know how you want to observe her as she closes down what she's working on.
All right. Well, I am curious. So
Wait a second. Hold on. I had actually been talking to Mr. Murphy about that. If you would also like to make a roll, let's handle Mr. Murphy first. Right. And so I will allow Mr. Dietrich.
For me,
also.
it is both an observation and accidental observation because, like I said,
yeah,
I'm wondering if she had any Oreos over there.
Okay.
And so I very carefully watching what she's doing with my old police eye.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm going to use intellect.
Got it.
But that's it because I'm still kind of hungry and I'm a bit off my game. Let's just see what happens. Does she have any delicious cookies? I rolled a 9.
It looks like she took a folder filled with papers with her.
No cookies.
And right. Perhaps the pen, but no cookies. All right, Mr. Dietrich. I suppose you too can be observing. What are you looking for?
Again, to see if I can even read any of the writing, but also just to make sure if she took the writing away with her.
Mm-hmm. Go ahead and you make your observational roll.
All right. Well, I am curious, so I get a free level of effort in perception. I'm also trained in perception, and I rolled a 19.
Ooh, wow, nice roll. So just to refresh the rules, or I should say the rolls for viewers at home, rolling a 19 outside of combat garners what's called a minor effect. So a minor effect is generally something that I guess the game master would come up with, but in my sort of play, I like to negotiate with the player. So what sort of minor effect would you like to garner from this, Mr. Dietrich?
You said that she was shoveling papers into a folder and took that with her?
Yeah.
She missed one. One falls to the ground, and I'll pick it up and say, "Excuse me, you dropped this," and of course read it or look at it as I give it back to her.
All right. So as she's walking by you, indeed, this is exactly what happens. One of the papers sort of comes flitting out the back end of the folder that she's carrying, and it lands right there at your feet. You're there to pick it up and to hand it to her, and you're there to get a quick glance at it as you hand it back to her. She looks a little off when you hand it to her, as if she had been trying to make a smooth exit but was interrupted by the simple act of dropping something. And she takes the paper from you and then continues to head out of the room. But before she does so, she gives you a very quick yet polite nod as a thank you, and then is gone. Do you want to know what's on the paper right now, or do you want to sort of be surprised a little bit later when we all kind of talk?
Be surprised later.
Okay. That also gives me some time to think about it.
EBD, you should have used that 19 to find sweets on her.
I know.
Very upset.
I know. I'm sorry.
At that point, Mr. Twain, as you are now referring to him, I sort of assume, heads back, and he looks at you, Vesper, and he offers you up a box that you recognize as a cigar box, opens it up, and offers you one. There you go, son. Go right ahead. Don't be afraid.
Well, very well. I gladly take it, and I give it a big whiff, and then just put it right in my pocket.
He seems disappointed when you do that, but shrugs.
You've been traveling up from south to south, I see. Have you been on a journey then?
Well, the south? Whatever do you mean by that? You mean the south, or do you mean
South of
here?
Boston. Hartford's down that way.
Ah, as soon as you mention Hartford, his eyes sort of grow warm, and you can see his fondness for the city. Yes, it's, to be honest, it's been a while, my friend. How is it that you knew I was from Hartford?
Well, you see, it seems you've unnerved my dear friend Zed here, because you're dead.
If he were actually drinking at the moment you said that, he would have spat out his drink, but he looks rather surprised. I don't know if I would call myself dead, exactly. And he steps over to an old, worn leather chair. And looking at it, you can see, as he sits in it, that he's probably been sitting in it all of his life. He eases back in the chair and takes a deep puff. And now the feeling is, looking around the room that is empty of everyone except for yourselves, the boy who is grown tired and sleepy and is sort of falling asleep by Cloudy, and the young girl who's resting beside him and looks younger and younger, or at least I should say fresher and fresher by the moment, and the couple which have eased themselves quietly onto a nearby couch. Looking around, it feels now as if you're in a gentleman's club after hours. And you're all sharing stories, almost. It feels as if there's this sort of air of honesty that enters the room. And his eyes grow dark as he looks down at the floor. I tell you, though, I don't think I'm dead, but I'm honestly not always sure. How do you gentlemen feel? Do you feel dead right now?
No,
Dead
but
tired.
but definitely strange. This world that we're in, it doesn't seem like our world. And then I'll reach my hand over and use a shatter ability, one of my adept abilities, to shatter a glass next to like the bottles. with my hand. So it just it does that.
I won't even make you roll for it because
Okay.
it just happens.
Mhm.
And I'm not sure how everyone reacts to this. Are you all shocked?
I'm startled slightly, but then I grin as I look towards the shattered glass.
Yeah, shocked and impressed.
Mr. Twain, why am I able to do that?
It's interesting, isn't it? The things that change when you're over here. I first came here, well, with my best recollection, I came here for the first time 8 or so years ago with the comet. And I've been back and forth ever since. It's been a while, though, since my last trip back. I kind of prefer things over here. I kind of knew when I saw all of you come in with Cloudy here, I kind of knew there was something different about each one of you, and I was starting to think that it was just, well, it was just those with a more intellectual bent. And he looks over at Murphy. But maybe that's not true. Maybe it's all of us at a certain level. There are things over here, things that happen like they're out of a fantasy book that you might read from the library. Things that I can't understand, things that I can't explain. I have a lot of fun complaining. Complaining is a God-given right of every man, the way I see it. But boy, some of the things here, I can't even complain about them. I can just stand in awe of them. But I will tell you something. There is something special about the four of you. I don't even have to ask Cloudy, and he does look over at Cloudy now. I don't even have to ask Cloudy whether or not you are good men. Just the fact that he brought you here, and the three that you brought here with you, I know you are, and for that I thank you. I'd like to hear your story. I'd like to hear what happened. But the hour is growing rather late. Perhaps tomorrow we can hear that story. But for now, I believe that I owe you gentlemen at least the answers to a few questions before we go to bed. Is there anything I can do besides provide? He looks over at Murphy, who's shoveling food into his mouth. Provide you with
Still.
food and with that precious liquor that you seem to be consuming as if it were going out of style. And he takes a puff of his cigar.
You four were referred to as some kind of elders in this world. Two questions. Who are the others? And what is your purpose here?
We are the Society for the Preservation of New England Antiquities. And you folks may recognize that as a legit organization from back where you're from. But there's a lot more going on behind the scenes. Have you heard of the Watch and Ward Society?
Yeah, we've met Coatsworth.
That's Coatsworth's group.
I thought as much. The Watch and Ward Society pretends to be focused on the moral health of not just New England, but of all the United States and perhaps someday the world. But in fact, they are the disease that spreads. They are an ancient organization known by many names through many times and across, believe it or not, what is called many dimensions. They are an offshoot of a small yet powerful organization here. And over the years, they have been encroaching on Earth. The Watch and Ward Society has been locked in a bit of combat, if you will, with the Society for the Preservation of New England Antiquities for quite some time now. And as of late, it hasn't been looking very good for my group. I don't know exactly how I became on this council that you speak of. There's a lot of things I don't really remember. Not clearly, anyway. But I do know there's a war, and somehow I found myself as one of the generals in it. Though why or how, I couldn't tell you. He takes a puff on his cigar, as if all this talk has tired him.
How big are both organizations?
I'm sorry?
How big are both organizations?
It's difficult to say. They're like the roots of a tree. You can't really see them all. And they're all underground. My own society, I can say, has got at least a few thousand people. But if you've ever heard the term plausible deniability, there are reasons why I do not know the extent and the strength of my own organization, or I should say, our own organization. But
those other generals, like you?
Generals, so to speak. I use the term very loosely. I had no military experience myself. I was once the captain of a riverboat, but that's about the extent of my military capacity.
And this war that you speak of, is it a hot war like the Great War going on on Earth? Men dying, fighting? Or is this some kind of psychological war?
It manifests itself as a hot war, as you say, on Earth. Here there's something deeper going on. There is a movement spreading across this world. A movement. It's a war on the imagination. It's a war on progress. A war on technology. A war on knowledge. And it's, as I said, it has manifested itself in the form of an intellectual war, as you say, here, and a violent physical war there. From most reports that I've received back on Earth, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, the Great War is coming to an end soon, is it not? Is that what you have heard? Please tell me. It's been weeks since I last heard the news back on Earth. Anyone?
Seems to be drawing to its conclusion.
Yeah,
Probably.
I think the Kaiser's ready to give it up.
He puffs on his cigarette as if satisfied to hear that. Well, that is good news. I am so delighted, so very, very delighted to hear that. However, I fear that the war will still go on. Think of the Great War as a battle, really. And the real war is happening here, and the shockwaves are just manifesting themselves back on Earth. I understand there's also an influenza pandemic that's sweeping the Earth, is it not?
Yeah, that's
It
definitely
certainly
kicked
is.
off. Yeah.
And that war we're speaking of has certainly spread that throughout the world.
Yes, that is rather unfortunate. That is rather unfortunate. You gentlemen, tell me something about each one of you. Enough about this. You, Night Watchman, how about you? How was it that you came to be with this group?
Is there a spot on the couch I can sit on?
Easily, yes, there is.
I'm going to limp over and plop myself down in the couch. Well, sir, I was at Fenway Park for the World Series, and I got a wonderful little orb in my pocket, and so did my associate TBD over there. And then we met these guys.
When you say that, he points at the little boy, and the little boy kind of like sits and he giggles for a moment. Was it you, Pascal, that did that? And Pascal kind of giggles. And when he does so, the man who you refer to as Twain, but haven't exactly confirmed, not exactly, reaches into his pocket and he pulls a large stained glass object out of it that looks like a melding of all four of the orbs that you had placed together. That boy is uniquely talented, and he hands it over to you, Murphy. A Night Watchman, you say?
Yeah.
How about you? And he points over at Vesper. Who are you?
You can call me Vesper, but I've been swept up in this since just yesterday, just like all of us here. It feels like a memory.
It is very nice to make your acquaintance, sir. How about you? And he points over at Dietrich.
Well, as Murphy said, I usually go by TBD, and I was
Mr.
at Fenway
TBD.
at a job interview, hoping to get a position with Harvard Medical School. And one thing leads to another, and I've got an orb in my pocket and two new friends, and we're swept up here.
And you, seminarian, how are you involved in this? Were you at a ball game?
No, I was at a library. And I met Vesper there, and we too found those orbs, obviously sent by Pascal to ultimately bring us here. And now we find we're, in a interdimensional war. What's our role in this war? I took a vow to join the cloth, not a battle.
He smiles. As of this moment, your role in this war has been minimal. And he gestures over to the young child and the two older adults who now look as if they're starting to come back. And this gentleman explains to you that this world that you are on right now is called Vagaver. It is a ring world, 4 concentric rings. You're on the innermost ring. The World Vine ring, which is what you saw when you came plummeting to this place. And there are cities on every one of these, or on many of these leaves on the vine. And what you have done is you have brought back 3 members of a group of pariahs called the FiERCE BRooD. Now, in this world, the ring realms of Vagaver, governments, the world is ruled by what you would probably call on Earth noble houses. But here on Vagaver, they're called broods. They're families. The FiERCE BRooD is an ancient and rather legendary sort of group a group of outcasts, a brood of outcasts, which were 1,000 years before banished from Vagaver and hunted slowly and eliminated over time. Though before they could be eliminated, they discovered interdimensional travel. They traveled to Earth and they hid. And now hundreds, if not thousands of them, are hiding either in hibernation or in everyday life on the planet Earth. And the 3 folks that you brought back were a member of this fierce brood. He also goes on to explain that they were given the term fierce brood out of irony. They were actually seen as weak and inferior to other families. And they were called the fierce brood, essentially the way that a bully calls a little kid that he's making fun of, like a tough guy. But the fierce brood sort of learned to embrace this term, and they've now taken it for their own. And a few members of the fierce brood have remained on Vagaver. And they fight a kind of insurgency. Though for hundreds of years now, they've been essentially underground, just laying in wait. And as he mentioned before, a very large portion of them are in hibernation or in hiding on Earth. And what you gentlemen have done is just brought 3 members of their kind back home. And for that, sirs, and he looks at each one of you, we will always be grateful. I feel, looking at the 4 of you, that you are men of extraordinary talents and abilities, even if you do not necessarily, your looks might belie that. And he looks over at Murphy with that.
And at which time you notice that Murphy has fallen asleep and head is cocked, and there's a line of drool just hanging. Full and happy and a little buzz. He just drifted off during that talk.
A man after my own heart.
Your high intellectualism might be selling our limping friend slightly short.
That I may, sir, that I may, and for that I apologize. But in a nutshell, you have brought back a group, a small group, a family, within a brood of these outcasts, and for that I am eternally grateful, and the fierce brood will be eternally grateful to you. And at this point in time, it is we that are in your debt, and to this end, I will happily provide you with the shelter for the next night or 2 or 3, if you so choose, before you head back to Boston. Should you wish to know more, there are things we could talk about. We could use 4 men like yourselves in this war, but I would not want to drag you into something that you really have no part in. You have done us a service, and for that we are grateful. And I offer you a roof over your heads and a sanctuary for the next few days, should you wish to rest and recuperate, though it seems your night watchman friend has got the jump on all of you with that. The night is late, gentlemen. You all look tired. We're all tired. And I need to get these 3 to a place where they can properly recover. They may look well, but there's still work that needs doing.
Two quick things then before we retire.
Absolutely.
First, out of the mountain of questions we may have, How may we address you? As Sam, as Mark? What's your preference, sir?
Currently.
I see my reputation precedes me. You, sir, assume that I may be Mark Twain, otherwise known as Samuel Clemens. Is that correct?
Yes, so your answer?
Here you can call me Mr. Haley.
Zed, he's lying. I actually want to see if he's lying. I'm joking as I say it to Zed, but while I'm doing it, I'm going to actually try and detect that.
Yeah. So go ahead. How do you wanna play this then?
I am going to use my see-through checks of lies, deception, and illusion, of which I am specialized in.
Got it?
Isn't that two?
Oh, yes. Thank you. I love it when the players correct me. It just makes me feel like they're really getting involved.
And then I'm also going to reach over to TBZ's stack of books that has a Mark Twain book in it with his picture on it.
Yes.
Nice.
Yes. No, I would.
I like it.
The judges will accept that answer.
Okay. Well, as I'm doing that, I've put the wine bottle down. I reach back, and I just slide the top book off of TBD's lap there.
I like it.
And I put that and I hold that in my hand, and then and we're right about at a rest, so I'm going to also use effort.
Okay.
Nice.
And there we go. I'll roll badly again.
Yeah, I have a funny feeling this is going to be an easy
A
one.
14.
Looking at the
Nice.
biography on the dust jacket, you notice that the publication, this is a recent publication, and it makes mention of the fact that Mark Twain claims to, and, it's said, and of course, this is true. He was born with Halley's Comet, and he died with Halley's Comet. And
That's cool.
maybe he is lying, but he's knowing who he is. I don't know. Does Vesper know anything about at least like what Mark Twain wrote? Does he know anything about his sense of humor? Or
I would know him as the great humorist of America, probably.
yeah, you know what? I think you would, right? Because you are an artist. I think of everyone in the group, you're a bit more of an artist than everyone else. You get the feeling that he's saying that firmly with tongue in cheek, and he's playing with you a little bit. But the thing is, he probably is referred to as Mr. Haley around here.
Wow.
But he's not trying to disguise anything from you. Long story
Right.
short.
Great. Then I chuckle at that and then realize, well, as I always say, call a man as he likes to be called. But secondly,
He stops as if he was about to say goodnight, but then you say secondly, and he stops.
you must explain the powder. What is this trick? Everyone sniffs this and then we're somewhere else. Or is this some drug-induced dream? Explain it.
Ah, the powder. The hour is growing late, but I will tell you this. The powder is what makes time and space go round and round. You will find the powder in great quantities here. It is mined and refined here in Vagaver. It is a powder that laces with properties, a powder with properties that allows the warping and the bending of time and space. And as you have discovered, certain blends and certain refinements of it give the user certain abilities. The one which you use to get here gives you the ability to move through space and through dimensions. That is, I assume, what you gave them, and he looks over at Cloudy, who nods, you'll find that the powder has many uses for many different things. And I'd be happy to tell you about a few of them that I know, tomorrow. But for now, know that it is one of the most important products, one of the most important resources, not just in this world, but in all of time and space. And while the Earth may be short of this commodity, there are places that are rich with it. And here, Vigavur is one of them. Does that satisfy your question?
For now.
As much as it can for now. Exactly, yes.
Then, with that, he moves to shake all of your hands, assures you that some assistants, some other members, actually is what he calls them, of the Society for the Preservation of New England Antiquities, will be sure to get you to a nice set of rooms where you are free to spend the night. There will be a breakfast in the morning. He asks, you'll a facility to shower and clean yourselves up and rest and relax will be made available to you. He apologizes for the fact that he cannot allow you to leave the lighthouse, at least for tonight. But in the morning, he will be sure to help you out if you want to know anything about the city that he refers to as Tremontaine, which is where the lighthouse is located. And with that, a few assistants, a few members of the Society for the Preservation of Antiquities enter, and they escort you to another level where you're shown to a suite of rooms where there's a common kind of living room with 4 bedrooms and obviously facilities like a kitchen. There's a bar and a buffet for the hungrier, drinkier members of the group. There's a shower. And most interestingly of all, there is a balcony with the curtains drawn on it here. And so you are now, unless you have some questions for the helpful assistants, you are free to sort of talk amongst yourselves for a few moments and explore the room if you want to look around through the room.
I think my first thing to do, I'm going to walk across the room towards that balcony. You said is there a curtain across it?
Yeah, if you want to.
No, I want to, get to the side of it and kind of open it up and peek out. We've just been kind of followed and under danger. I want to just take a look outside to get a feel for the surroundings without announcing us to the world necessarily.
Yeah, looking out, you see essentially what looks like a shore covered in the wreckage of ships, wooden ships with no sails. And instead of seeing it meet with what would be Massachusetts Bay, you see nothing. You see empty space. And below you, you see leaves, enormous leaves that are spread out with small towns and cities lit up on top of them. And far out and across what would be the Atlantic Ocean, what you see is a bright ring, maybe hundreds of miles away. And then behind that, you see another ring at a slight angle, even fainter. And then behind that, you see another ring. And the impression you get is that those 4 rings that you are looking at as you descended onto this world are each at various angles. And it's a beautiful, spectacular view. And behind all of it is the curtain, the spectrum of a beautiful aurora. And you see greens and blues and reds wrinkling across the night sky. Anyone else?
I'm going to eyeball all the sleeping arrangements and see if I can identify the comfiest bed.
Do you want to make a roll for this, or do you want to like...
No, I'm just using instinct. Nothing special. This place is pretty good, guys. And I will hold up a turkey leg from the buffet. This is great. I haven't eaten this well in years.
Moving from room to room, you are able to identify the best bed with the comfiest pillow and the warmest looking blankets. And in fact, at one point you realize that maybe the comfiest pillow is actually in another room, and without telling anyone, you go over and you exchange that pillow.
Let's switch those out
for the other one, and then jump onto the bed, and it is indeed the comfiest bed that you have slept on in a very, very long time. Anyone else?
Well, so are we each getting our own room, or how is the arrangement?
There is a common area, like a living room, and there are 4 bedrooms that branch off of it with doors that have locks on them, so you could potentially lock it. The architecture that you're looking at looks like something out of the early 1900s, late 1800s, with every so often a rather, odd sort of tweak to it, an exotic sort of tweak. Some of the materials that you're looking at around the room, they don't always appear to be wood or metal like you would sort of expect. Sometimes they're made out of this material that's kind of odd. It's strong like metal or like wood, but it's also a little bendable and springy to it. And then there are other materials that seem almost organic. The walls, for example, in certain patches and areas almost look as if they're, organic. They almost seem as if they're breathing. You're not really sure. It's hard to identify.
Well, speaking to these guys, I think we're all very tired.
Mm-hmm.
I'm half expecting to wake up in my own bed back at the seminary. No offense. We're in a very strange world, and I think we should make do to rise as early as possible, maybe with the sun, and convene in this common area and make a plan, because I'm not sure of anything anymore. I'm not sure if we just met the ghost of Mark Twain. I don't even know where we are.
You are free to head to bed. Are you gentlemen all in agreement? Are you each heading to bed, or are you going to be up to different things?
I think I want to eat something, take a shower, and then go to bed.
Yeah. I mean, you can all do that.
Yeah. You're muted, James.
I am not going to be doing anything of import necessarily, but I'm going to just part the curtain slightly, just lean up against the wall, and I'm just kind of taken by this sight. And she won't be visible, but I'm just going to be muttering to my cat Mars as I take this in. And I'm going to do that for like an hour, and then I'll just retire.
Mm-hmm. All right.
I'm going to bed.
All right.
Time, boys.
So with that, all 4 of you head to your various rooms. And as I described before, what you find are the standard sort of things that you would find in the guest bedroom of someone's house or in a hotel. You find a bed. You find a nightstand. You find some snacks, drinks available to you. You've each got a window that looks out over a various different angle of what I described before that. Is there anything you're doing to protect yourselves or otherwise ensure a smooth night's sleep?
Are there tables and chairs in the rooms or desks? Yeah, I'm gonna rig the chair. Yeah, I'm gonna rig the chair up to the doorknob, not necessarily so that it doesn't open, but that if someone does try to enter, I'll certainly be notified of it.
Mm-hmm. Anyone else?
Not terribly worried, but
Go ahead.
we were warned that none of our equipment would work in this world. So I'm not so dumb that I'm going to just test fire my revolver here in the guest room. But I do want to just take stock of my equipment, and I think the one thing I could try.
You're not gonna like fire it off into like Vesper's room or into the ceiling or.
That'll be the wake-up call.
Morning.
We know the match didn't work,
Right.
and I still have a flashlight. I'm gonna just try and turn it on. I want to see, does it work? Does it light?
Flipping your flashlight on, it does not light.
So I'm reasonable enough to assume that my gun probably isn't going to work either. But what could happen to us? We'll be fine. Good night, boys.
All right. So with that, it's lights out.
Yeah, one last thing. I'm gonna.
I thought there would be. I thought this would happen.
It's hard to get in sometimes. I'll just be having Mars sitting by the door, who is pretty alert and interested in kind of prowling at night and seeing what's going on.
Okay. So with that, I think this is a very good moment, even though it's a little bit early, to take a 10-minute breather. So we are going to take a 10-minute break at this time, and when we come back, we will pick up our adventure here in Vagaver. All right, ladies and gentlemen, we are back after a 10-minute break. Thank you very much for putting up with our biological needs. So not just within the game do we need to rest and recover, but also, well, within the bounds of the game do we need to rest and recover, but within our own real lives, so too do we need to rest and recover. So when we last left our heroes, they had theorized that they were in the company of one Mark Twain, who had introduced himself as a Mr. Haley, who had felt indebted to our heroes for the services that they provided of escorting the three members of the child's family from Earth to what the heroes now presume is Vagaver. As thanks for this, Mr. Haley had provided our heroes with shelter and food for the night and for several more days afterward, should they choose to do so. And now our heroes, at the beginning of the break, had gone to sleep in various states of exhaustion. And indeed, I am happy to say that they have made it through the night. I know, phew.
Really
That was
led us on with that one.
That was a marathon. So during the break, people have been asking me whether or not they're going to be able to make recovery rolls or get their HP back, and all of that stuff, because essentially the last 4 or 5 games have been one long marathon of activity, and they have been slowly but surely getting drained of resources and HP. But I can tell everybody that you are able to make all of your recovery rolls, and a new day dawns. So essentially, you're back up to, for all intents and purposes, you are back up to full capacity. So, gentlemen, it's what you think is the early morning, but when you look out through that, off of that balcony that looks out across the other rings of Vagaver, they have now reached a state where they seem to be closed. They're coming closed, probably a few hours away from full alignment at this point. And it does appear to be slightly lighter out, but it's not the sort of daylight that you would have expected from the morning daylight in Boston. It's more like a dusky kind of look. And the aurora has faded slightly, but the feeling that you get from looking out at it is that it's still there. It's only that there is now more light, that it is somehow diminished. No one has come to the door. No one has said a word to bring you anywhere. So you do have the morning to kind of sit and discuss and talk. You feel rested and fully recovered. I'd like to remind you all that you're free to explore the room or chat a bit or whatever you'd like to do, or we can sort of get on with things if you want to fast forward. So you're free to do as you wish.
Is there art in the room? Does it?
Or more books?
There is art, and there are more books. Looking around the room, in the main room, I would say, there is a painting on one of the far walls. But when I say painting, I use this term loosely. What you realize from looking at this painting is that it is not unlike the three-dimensional writing that you saw in the books and scratched onto the walls back in the crypt at the Old North Church. And as you move left and right and up and down, what you see are a spider and a bear together. The spider is on the back of the bear and appears to be cocooning it. And the bear looks outraged, angry, terrified, and almost sad. This is, without a doubt, the most bizarre, discomforting hotel painting you have ever seen in your life, or art exhibit for that matter. And there appears not to be any signature on it.
I cocked my
Painting's
head,
not
looked a little
moving?
sideways at it. Say,
It
well,
appears to be moving as you do that. It looks like
and I
it's
just
cocooning the
muttered,
bear.
Oh, like actively?
Within reason, kind of like when you're looking at, like when you're at like a bus stop or whatever, and you see those three-dimensional kind of like.
I muttered, I wish it was just a sailboat.
That's right. Interestingly, though, as you're looking at the painting, you see that the buffet is refilled.
I head right for it right after that.
Yeah.
Let's start the day.
Ready to go.
Well, and aside from the buffet as well, I'd like to just look around and see if there's anything that I might consider complimentary items, like a bar of
Towels?
soap or a thing of shampoo
Swag.
or I don't know, shoe polish rag. I don't even know. But anything that might be useful.
There's a lot that's not tied down, Murphy.
I'm not stealing things.
No.
It needs to present itself as I would use it. It's a consumable, in other words.
Looking around the room, one thing that you do notice as you inspect the bar is that there is a small box that you open up, and it's got various blends of snuff in it.
Ooh, gentlemen. I'm going to take that box
Okay, here
and
we
bring
go.
it into the center of the common room.
It's going to be a
And just
long
like-
weekend.
I'm just going to place it on the table by the typical couch or love seat or whatever is in these common areas and just place it down. And gentlemen, it's some of that snuff stuff. Ooh. And wait, this reminded me, and I'm going to reach into my pocket. I'm going to pull out 2 items. The stylus thing,
Yeah.
and explain I found this rolled towards me in that crypt back in North Church, and I'm going to place that on the table. And then of the other odds and ends I found, Vesper identified a couple of them. He's got one, but the one that we could figure out, and I'll take that 3rd item, which is still somewhat warm to the touch, and place that out on the table as well. Also from the crypt.
And
Yeah, I put down my eggs, and I'll go over the table and sit there as well. And I want to take another crack at this 3rd object if I can. But yeah, I pull the other one that I had taken. Like, look at these artifacts. They just abound. We're blessed with these.
Yes. So bringing them all out, I believe there were 2 that you could identify and 1 you could not. Is that correct?
Yeah.
Correct.
Yeah. So one of them, placing them all on, I assume, like a coffee table before you. You do notice
that's what I imagined.
when you place them out in front of you, you do notice that they start to glow slightly, and they seem warmer to the touch. And you are reminded that you get that, of that feeling you had on the shores as you approach the lighthouse, that maybe putting these things together in large quantities is not the safest thing. One of them you identified as a spatial warp. That is on page 287 of Numenera Discovery. The other one you identified as a lightning wall projector on page 282 of Discovery. And the third one is the one that you hadn't been able to identify. I'm not sure who is carrying... I mean, I know they're out on the table right now, but who is carrying each one?
I have the lightning wall projector. Frank has the first one, the spatial
warp.
Mm-hmm.
And the third I had been carrying, but I think.
Because it was way too warm in my pocket.
Yeah, I was handling that one still. I'm gonna take mine back into my coat pocket, just feeling that they're not doing too well sitting together.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and I'll pull the spatial warp one back as well.
Yeah, immediately when you both do this, they cool to the touch. And you can feel that whatever you've done by separating them, it's probably the best thing to do. Mm. And you shouldn't really keep them close together.
Good. Then I'll reach out for the third and I'll handle it, because it was, I think, also like some substance we couldn't even identify. The others were like stone and wood. Is this like the metal that was like the bed frames you were talking about?
There you go. I won't even make you roll for it. Whatever this object is, it is similar to that metal that's kind of bendable. It's soft in a way, but it's incredibly strong. It feels, in a way, almost organic.
Mm. All right, I'm going to take a crack at as identifying the object as I'm looking at it, because I want to then be like passing it off to our other compatriots.
Yeah. So...
Can I do the help action?
Ooh.
Yes, you can.
Check it out, TD.
I am trained in identify as well, so I will help Vesper figure it out.
The whole purpose of placing the powder in these items out here is because, you know, I feel like you guys might be slightly smarter, maybe, than myself, and I can't make hide nor hair of it.
Well, I didn't last long on the street, Murphy, so maybe our smarts are in, what do you call it, compliment.
Yes, there you go. That's one way of putting it. That's the teacherly way of putting it. That's what I say to the slower students that need a boost.
Thank you. That's great.
I'm just joshing you. I'm kidding you.
We're all special.
You're all wonderful. You're all my favorite students. So with TBD, Mr. Dietrich's help, you can attempt to identify it. You also have an identify cipher skill or ability, do you not?
I'm trained in identifying.
Okay. And is there anything else you want to do to try and... Do you want to apply a level of effort? I would just like to remind the audience, I think, that everybody is essentially refreshed and you've made it through. So we're all back up to speed. Do you want to apply a level of effort?
Yeah, I will apply a level of effort, because I don't want to... I've already seen like the beneficial effects of ciphers, and these mystical artifacts we're going to need as much help as we can. So I want to make sure we know, after identifying something that like puts lightning on a wall, it might be nice to know what this is.
Right. Well, I'm going to say with that, you are able to identify it.
Okay.
That's enough to lower the task difficulty for you to identify it. So now it's just up to you to go ahead and roll a D100.
D100. So 17.
17. This is an item called a matter disruptor. Detonation. It is a kind of wearable device. It's explosive. It is basically an oblong or handheld device that explodes in an immediate radius, releasing To you, tiny little objects, tiny little somethings that rearrange matter in random ways. And it inflicts damage equal to the Cipher level, which is at least, I'm going to say, above a 3. And I'm going to have you roll a 1d6 and add 4 to it.
It's 7 total.
So it's a level 7. It's a matter disruptor detonation, you can put in parentheses. And it's an oblong device that explodes in an immediate radius, releasing nanites that, well, leave the word nanites out of there. Tiny things.
Some kind of knights.
That, right. that, tiny things that rearrange matter in random ways. And it inflicts damage equal to the Cipher level. So if you want to, please write down Numenera Discovery, page 278, just to help me in the future to flip to that page very quickly.
Great. As soon as I'm investigating, I'm looking at it. As soon as I find out what it is, I just gently place it on the table and push it over towards Murphy and say, "You may be more apt to deal with an object like this, which might just explode in an immediate area. It seems dangerous."
Are you taking it with you, Murphy?
You're on mute, dude. You're on mute, Frank.
Oh,
That doesn't sound good.
No.
And it gets pretty warm when it's with me.
Well, here's the thing. It depends. Okay, so this is a little bit of metagaming here. You are a warrior, correct? Yeah. Okay, so a warrior can carry with them 2 ciphers, at least at tier 1, right? When you start going above 2 or 3 or 4, I won't tell you exactly what happens, but let's just say it ain't pleasant and it gets riskier by the moment. So what you have noticed in-game is that when you have 3 or more, they start to feel warm, as if something not too good is going on. So how many ciphers are you carrying with you in total?
I've got a subtle from the beginning and
1,
the spatial warp from
2.
Just yesterday.
Yeah, so if you take this matter disruptor, that's going to put you over the limit.
Correct. And incidentally, boys, putting the disruptor with the spatial warp, extending that effect up to a mile, this could be pretty devastating.
Now you are cooking with gas.
Just bring us to the final castle. We'll take care of it today.
I don't think I can carry these together comfortably, but if it's a destructive weapon, I might feel more comfortable with the priest carrying it.
I like how the priest just looks up like, what?
Like,
I mean, I guess I can hold on to it. Sure.
Now, priest, how many? Well, seminarian, how many ciphers are you carrying? This is out of game.
I currently only have 1 left, and I can carry up to 3.
There you go. Okay,
Yeah.
so you're all set.
And since we're outside of gaming, I can throw a random holy hand grenade joke out right now.
absolutely.
You know what?
5.
There's never an inappropriate time for a holy hand grenade joke.
Very true.
So I would say don't even worry about it.
And that
Yes.
that leaves the powder for us to discuss.
Yeah.
The
Right.
snuff and the stylus, which it was never my intention to steal. I just lifted it in case it might belong to that family, but I don't know what it is.
Can I add one more thing? There is also, just to keep everybody aware of this, because Dietrich would not have forgotten about this, there's also the matter of the sheet of paper that he saw.
Oh, yes.
Hadn't forgotten.
Oh, okay.
Hadn't forgotten.
Okay.
Yeah.
So there are all of those matters to discuss or to take into account for.
very much enjoy the line of, "I didn't steal it, I just lifted it." And I want
Rescued.
to.
The word is rescued.
That's right.
Rescued it.
I'm really interested in the powder.
You
I
would
saw
still be in
Frank
that
steal
crypt
the.
were it not for me.
I saw Frank steal the stylus. I see it on the table here, but I'm interested in this powder. So is this like laid out where everyone kind of had these cases with different kinds, or is this just a pile of powder?
So what you see, so Frank opens up Murphy opens up this small little case, and within it are these little packets. They're either some sort of paper packets that are sealed, or maybe there's some other form, maybe something more organic. You're not quite sure. And they're essentially laid out. There are 4 different blends that are kind of laid out in a row, and it looks like there are 2 or 3 little packets in each row. So it looks like a flight of snuff, and if you holding it up to the light and looking at it, you can kind of see that snuff is in there, and there's just 1 pinch for each one.
In the packets is a pinch.
Yeah.
So this is effectively like a personal sheet of packets or something. Okay.
Yeah.
Did each of us have one of these boxes?
You didn't search your rooms.
Okay.
Oh, is this from the room or from the main room?
Oh,
I thought that was from the main room. Okay.
I had said that this one is from the main room, but I hadn't.
Okay.
Oh, okay.
But we have not.
I mean, if you
okay.
go back and look, do you all go back and look?
No, I was under the impression that it was in Frank's room, and that's why I said if we each.
Oh,
I
the other
was
stuff he
pilfering this
stole.
entire place.
Oh, okay.
It was very confusing. It was a confusing blur. I had assumed that you were in the main room, Frank. And so
you said
I
I
was-
found it near the buffet.
Yes.
Oh, okay. Okay.
That's
Which
what I
would have
said.
been where his room is,
We're
closest
all,
to the buffet.
you're all confusing me with your various levels of morality
Theater of the
here,
mind, Matt.
stealing
Theater of the
from.
mind.
In the
stealing
morning,
from
were
your
there
host.
Oreos in the buffet?
You find
Yeah, what
you
level
find
of inception are we at?
all you find is Frank splayed out on the floor with Oreo crumbs all over him. But
They're
no
good.
Are they
Oreos.
Oreos or are they Hydrox?
Oh no!
All right, wise guys.
Apparently, at this time they are Oreo biscuits. They're not
Yes,
yet
there
a
we
sandwich
go.
cookie. But
Anyway,
so
here's
I want to connect.
long story short. You find a flight of these bits of these packets of snuff by the buffet in the main room, but you have not gone and searched your own rooms.
Great.
Okay.
I want to connect like our experiences with this powder, the snuff.
Mhm.
And I think we've used it to travel.
Yes.
I guess I've witnessed Coatsworth do that, and I think he traveled as well. I don't know that we've saw someone use it. Oh no, we've seen the Childs use it to like improve their life force
Conditions. Yeah.
Am I
They've
able to
used it
like
for speed.
connect? Are the powders differently colored, or the packets have identification on it?
You have noticed, and I think that I mentioned a few games back, because I don't listen to every single game, but I'm pretty sure I noticed that they are different shades. If you want to sort of roll to think back on your memories and recollections, I will completely allow that, and you can see if you can put some numbers together. And you're free to gather aid from other people who you like to simulate like putting your experiences together.
Yeah.
You had the speed that I took was red.
Yeah, we start looking at the colors, and I'm pointing at the different ones. I'm like, this here, we traveled with this, and then start that discussion amongst us all to try and piece together maybe the effects and the colors that we've maybe experienced so far.
Was the traveling one different than the one we took to get out of the room with the boy originally that we walked through the wall?
Without even rolling, I'm going to say that it wasn't the same shade of red that you used in order to increase your speed. It was a different shade. What it was, I'm going to say, like, in the moment, you weren't even thinking about it, but you remember it wasn't that shade of red or whatever. It was some other color.
Certainly not for me. I was usually busy while that's kind of like divvied out. Or how about when the childs were being healed? Was anyone tending to them and happened to notice anything about the powder at that time?
You can totally roll to see what your recollection of these things are.
I'll just go straight with a roll.
Okay, so no. Yeah, I would recommend, based on yesterday in game time, you probably don't want to eat away at your intellect, speed, or might points at this point.
There's that winning smile again. It's a 16, luckily.
Would only have an effect, but a 16 is just a very high roll without necessarily an effect. Looking at it and checking it out, what you notice is that they have been different colors. You don't remember exactly what the colors were, because the truth was the red, I'm not sure if you got a glance at it, but maybe from talking to Dietrich, the red that Dietrich describes is different than the red maybe that you saw in this rejuvenation version or rejuvenative version that was given to the child's family. But you do notice that there are subtle differences in color. One thing that you also notice is, looking back on it, you remember that there was a logo, kind of like a brand logo, that you just sort of took for granted, that was actually placed, or that was actually engraved into the case that Mr. Cloudy offered to you when he offered you the blend to get you here to Vagavar. And, drumroll please, that logo was the H with the double line through it.
Is that engraved or written on these packets?
Looking at the packets, you do not see that. There are no markings on them, as a matter of fact. All
right. I lean back after my exhaustive research on this topic and say, I ascertain this is very dangerous to just try and use this powder without identification.
So did Vesper actually figure out which colors were which?
Looking at it, no. I'm so sorry. After all that description, I didn't really give you an answer. There are different shades and colors to it, but I guess what I was trying to get at was that because there were various shades, you're probably not quite certain what each shade necessarily does at this point. If there is a system, you're not really sure.
Okay.
Maybe we should go find the Haley guy.
Well, before we do that, I definitely want to check my room now.
Heading back to your room?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely.
What do you need to mention, Vesper?
I wanted to just throw out there that we hadn't, or that there was some kind of logo or writing from before when Cloudy had pulled that out, and if we're able to read it, perhaps a clue will unearth itself. Fiend.
Not one of my skills.
We have some of that writing now, you mean?
You could look around the room for books and other periodicals that might contain that writing. the painting on the wall is very similar to the style in which that
Can I
writing was made.
recall that logo?
The way that
I
you
pick up the stylus and try to draw it immediately.
you can, so you pick up the style. How do you draw it? Tell me.
As I throw that out there and it's met with silence,
Mhm.
and I think about it, and I pull the stylus up and put it down and feel kind of almost compelled through my musical brain of notating things. And I recall that character, and I just put it out on right on the table, just
Writing it out on the table, you create those strokes 1, 2, 3, and 4. And it almost looks like it basically looks like a tic-tac-toe grid. And then you extend those 2 lines to make it more into an H. And when that happens, you can see that you're not writing on the table. It's almost hovering on the surface of the table.
That's awesome.
As if you could wipe it away.
I flip the pen to the backside to point at it, just as a pointing device. Nothing special, just like I don't even have a pen. Okay, just around in my fingers, just kind of stab at it and say, this here was something on Cloudy had when we were about to travel.
Stabbing at it, that opposite end passes through one of the strokes and it erases it, as you would expect with an eraser.
Oh, wow. Oh, my. And I fill it back in.
You fill it right back in.
Yeah.
And it's the same thing that you saw on Mr. Coatsworth III. The same pendant that appeared to look like a cross to everyone else. But when you looked through it, you could see that it was actually this emblem or logo or symbol, whatever you want to call it.
So this double-crossed H shows up everywhere. It's on Coatsworth, who now is our enemy, as we are aware. It's on the snuff powder of Cloudy. What do we know of this language? I cannot figure it out. Harvard, you've been looking at it. What does it look like to you?
I have been looking at it. Yeah. Have I seen that other than as a logo? Has it been included as a normal character in the other writings?
Go ahead and make a roll now. You have been looking at many of the books, as we noted before the break. You had been looking at many of the books in Mr. Haley's office at the time. So go ahead and I'll give you that as an asset, the fact that you looked through his stack of books. Is there anything else you'd like to do to decrease the difficulty of this roll? An ability or a level of effort? It's very early in the morning to be applying effort. Didn't your mother always tell you not to save effort for later in the day?
Absolutely. Can I use my skill that I'm trained in called tasks related to figuring out how to solve problems with multiple solutions?
Yes, I think so. And in fact,
stuff.
normally I would negotiate with the player and ask how you want to use this, but actually I think this sounds like a very logical way to apply this. Want to tell me a little bit about how you're going to use it? And then, but yes, you can. How are you going to connect the dots?
A lot of it is cross-referencing, I guess, what we just discovered in Haley's office, but also my memory of the case, since Cloudy directly gave me the case and let me take a pinch out of it.
Got it.
He also let me know that they're asked me about the different brands that were different types of stuff in there. So I've kind of got some experience with it directly that way.
Yeah, sounds good. Do you anything else? Just these two?
Just those two for today.
Okay. Yeah, go ahead. Make your roll.
It's a 1.
Ladies and gentlemen, the first one of the night. Just to let you know, when a 1 is rolled in the Cipher system, the GM makes what's called a free intrusion, and I do not award XP points because of this. Now, I am fairly certain that you could probably... Now, I actually don't know, and I'm not gonna bother to look it up because I don't want to slow the game down. But in when this happens, I had assumed that you're not allowed to buy your way out of this, but I'm going to allow you to buy your way out of it. If you'd like to spend an XP, which is another thing you can do, you can spend an XP to re-roll any roll in the game. So essentially, if you'd like to do that, let me know.
Nope.
And I'd be... Oh! So you're going to take my intrusion?
Uh-oh.
Yep.
Oh.
The Oreos are gone.
Oh!
XP is too precious.
I know, especially for someone that likes to level up so much. That is really true. That is really true. All right, so I have my GM intrusion. I'm not going to tell you what it is. It may or may not happen now or at some point in the future. But just be aware that when I do intrude, I will let you know, and you will not be able to buy your way out of it. This is just simply what's going to happen, okay?
Fair enough.
So in that case,
so
you
I
do
don't know,
not
Whisper.
recall...
I haven't been able to figure this one out or attach it to anything yet. I'm still looking.
Well, that's a pickle, isn't it?
It is.
I want to catch Zed in the middle of like a mouthful of bacon or something like that, and just immediately turn and just be like, I only know a land like this perhaps in dreams, but you seem to know more of it on a spiritual level, in purgatory or death. Where are we?
I wish I had better answers. I feel like philosophically we're in between, you know, the celestial realm or heaven, and it doesn't feel quite like the pit, but it also doesn't feel like it's earth. So that's why I settled on a kind of purgatory, a kind of in between. And now that I, Twain didn't answer the question, but certainly that other fellow must have been Edgar Allan Poe, another long dead writer. And I'm not sure who the other two were, but this is a place where us the living and them the dead both exist. So I don't know. And I've been meaning to ask the lot of you, what is your feeling? Do we find a way back? Do we try these powders to send us back, or do we join this war?
In terms of our choices of damnation or repentance, neither is truly desirable. But we also have an enemy after us that drove us right back here to investigate this. As much as we may think we're great explorers or saviors of this BRooD, really we're on the run from shadows and skin dogs.
Yeah, and why we have powder here, we don't exactly know it's going to bring us back home, if at all. Even though we might feel like we're free to go, we're still beholden to the folks who have more information than we do. So I think we have to hear them out either way. We don't have a choice.
I'd like to remind you all of one more thing, and I'm not trying to force the conversation in any one direction, but last night what you saw was the seminarian place his fingertip against a glass and shatter it. So I'm not sure, and again, I don't want to steer the conversation, but there may be this kind of elephant in the room that you're waiting to talk about, or at least you want to reference, but you don't have to. It's completely up to you.
What, that the priest likes to break stuff?
Well, just for clarification, I pointed at it from across the room. I didn't touch it when it shattered.
Okay, got it. I
But
stand
it would have.
corrected.
It definitely would have seemed a little bit more strange to everyone here.
I like it. If it's for me, I'll explore that a little bit. But here we are, and I know a trick or two. I do them myself reliably. But you, a seminarian, a man of cloth that I am now imparting about our spiritual destiny, has powers of destruction with a fingertip.
I don't know what compelled me to do that, but I do feel power coursing through me. I feel like I have an ability over matter itself. And Vesper, you and I, when we met, I asked you to not bring up my past, but I think it's only fair that I do so for all your sakes. I was kicked out of my family home because, and quite unknown to me how it happened, and it's happened several times since, I can ignite into flame. I burned down our family workshop, and my brother was there, and I didn't harm him, but there are points in my life where, usually dictated by stress, I'm able to burst into flames.
Can you control it?
They don't harm me. It lasts a couple of minutes and then it dissipates.
Calm down, friend. We're only talking here. I smile.
But I can tell you, it's in moments of either fear or anger that it happens. But I'm very confident, and I don't know whether it's the air or what is going on in this realm, that if I said the word, I could burst into flame right now.
Maybe we should take the explosive thing away from him.
It might not matter if he does it himself. But indeed,
that's amazing.
These worlds must be meeting. They must be bent. He mentioned, Twain did, or Haley, mentioned of the reflection of this war being our great war back on Earth. I think we're closer than we ever had been. The veil itself, perhaps drawing to the side. For of all the trickery and all of the deception I might employ in just my normal waking life, it has seemingly manifested a little more in the true stuff than before.
So then you understand what I'm saying. Because it seems fairly preposterous to me, but yet I can do it.
I know not from whence yours may come. Mine is truly just deception. It's just tricks. I've learned it all. I've used it 1,000 times. If any of you have seen some magical awakening from the powers that I emit, it's nothing but tricks. But here it seems, and back on Earth in this time now that we have traveled, does seem to take more of a physical form, more of a real sense.
Now, I think we need more answers. More answers and more direction. I don't know. What is your take on Twain? I tend to trust him. I tend to trust the child. I certainly trust the boy. He seems genuine.
With this surface understanding of the powers at play in this world we're thrust into, the preservation society is certainly more in line with anything I would feel.
You know, and certainly Coatsworth is no prince.
Yes, this group has not overtly tried to kill us yet.
It's all very subtle and indirect.
Well, let's find out what plans they may have for us and make our decision from there.
Yeah, we got plenty of questions. But before we go, now I want to reveal what I read on her page.
Okay.
So, taking a look, or with the brief glance that you got, what you noticed is that she was writing a letter of some sort. And you know it was a letter of some sort that she was writing that was very fresh and was probably the actual document that she was taking notes on, because of the fact that when it fell out and landed on the ground, you could see that the ink, which was still wet moments before she placed it in the folder, had smeared and smudged. And within this letter, it mentions at several points the Honorable BRooD Trading Company. And the H with the two lines across it, like an extended, stretched tic-tac-toe grid, was several times mentioned. You didn't actually get to see what was contained in the letter, but you did notice words like war, disease, powder, spy, information, and most tantalizing of all, the name at the top of the letter, Dear So-and-so, which was blurred out, smeared and smudged. The letter was unfinished, as if she had been writing it then and there and decided to close it up. But she was essentially writing a letter, you feel, to someone about everything that was going on and everything that Mr. Haley had told you about earlier on. Whoever this person that the letter was addressed to, you have no idea. But this woman was very directly involved in the goings-on.
Okay. I'll make sure I relay that to everybody.
Is this as the letter of a spy herself revealing information?
It looks to me like she's just updating different factions. Right? Whether she was just sitting there calmly writing all this down.
I'm not going to say that to you, Dietrich, but I'm going to allow you to interpret it that way, okay? So I'm being neutral here. I'm not telling you one way or another. If you wish to interpret it that way, that is fine.
That's how I'm interpreting it for now. Give her the benefit of the doubt. She was too much out in the open, and there was no hurry, there was no sense for her to try and hide it. So I think it was just more of an update.
Fair
There
enough.
was no mention.
I'll
There was
take
no
the-
mention of us. Matt, there was no mention of us.
There was no mention that you noticed of you or your newfound friends.
Very well. As we're in a trepidatious time, I might take the alternate view. And we can coexist.
That's perfect.
You can agree
Shall we
to disagree.
face the new... Frank, you're muted?
One thing that's bothering me, and I never really checked it, I'm going to go to the door to the suite and see if it'll open.
Oh, good idea.
While he does that, I want to check my room.
So, Murphy, you head over to the door to the suite, and indeed, it opens right up. It opens up into... Go ahead.
I want to peek out and see what's out there.
Looking out, it appears to be like an dramatically wide hallway. And at one end, there's a stairwell going up, and at the other end, there's a stairwell going down. And then across the hallway is another door that appears to be, you assume it mirrors this side, so you assume that it's another suite of rooms, and whether or not Mr. Haley or some other guests are staying in it, you don't know, but it does seem to be, like I said, mirroring this suite of rooms that you were in.
Well, we're not locked in, guys, but there's no one out here. Does anyone recall if we're supposed to wait until summoned, or shall we go find that main office?
I'd say we
Times
go
is-
back. Yeah.
Times as strange as these, let's make our own destiny.
Before we leave, I definitely want to check my room, see if I can get my own snuff.
Good idea.
Take
heading
that
back
snuff with us.
heading back to your
Oh, I want
room.
to.
Yes, there is a selection. There is a small sampler pack, shall we call it for lack of a better term, by the bedside, actually in the bedside table. So you open it up expecting to find a Bible. Instead, you find a little sampler pack of about the same size as the first one that was found in the common area by the buffet.
Does it appear to be the same colors?
Yeah, it appears to be the same sort of thing.
I'm gonna do the same. I guess we're gonna have an extra. Who wants it?
If everybody heads to
Yeah.
their
Go get my packet.
A fine
Everybody-
selection of teas.
who heads to their rooms and checks their nightstands does
Zero
indeed
gray.
find that.
Hospitality is great.
And as you folks explore your rooms, there is a knock at the door.
Okay, I'll
I'll
answer it.
It's
I'll answer.
housekeeping.
Opening it up,
Damn it.
Towel service?
opening it up, it is one of the assistants from the night before who looks kind of freshly, as if he's just gotten onto work. He looks into the room kind of apologetically, just hoping he hasn't woken anyone up, and asks if you would agree to come to breakfast this morning. Mr. Haley has had something very special prepared for the group. Please. He would be honored if you would join him for breakfast this morning.
Excellent. Breakfast sounds good.
Let's go.
Absolutely.
Thank goodness this guy showed up. I can't remember how we got to this room.
You're half asleep, man.
The wonderful powers of theater of the mind and just sort of blending one scene into another. A great power of among GMs. And so the assistant leads you down several flights of stairs until you reach a floor that kind of looks like it doubles as like a common sort of room, and then a kitchen room. And it's a rather large dining room. And Mr. Haley is there in the kitchen, and he's going from cook to cook or from pot to pot, and he's tasting this here and like sipping that there and kind of like making sure that everything is just as it needs to be, because after all, there are 4 special guests that are with them this morning. And so when he turns and he kind of sees the 4 of you, he throws up his hands and he runs, and unless you resist him, he's shaking your hands and hugging you and pulling you close, and very happy to have you. And he collects each and every one of you and brings you around to this enormous relatively enormous table, which is set out, and he has a seat at the head of it, and he offers you each your dishes, which assistants come out, and the feeling is, as these assistants are feeding you, it doesn't feel like they are any sort of servant. They don't feel like any kind of butler or maid or chef or waiter or waitress. They almost feel, the way that he addresses them, as if they are apprentices within the group. And they talk to him respectfully, but on a level that you're not quite used to seeing, almost a level as if they are equal to him, these apprentices, as if they are incredibly comfortable with him, as if they know him, and as if there's something kind of unofficial in this loose grouping of all of these people. And they bring out food for you and set it down, and sure enough, it's the sort of food that 4 Bostonians would expect. There is some warm chowder for a cold day. There are hot eggs over toast, just the sort of things that you might eat. And I know that Dietrich is from New York, but you're going to have to live with Bostonian food. And indeed, as you start to dig into it, you had never really thought about it before, but there's something to the food that strikes you as distinctly New Englandy. And Haley is so excited. He seems to be talking only about the food, assuring you that it is fresh from this morning, and it was baked with ingredients or made with ingredients that were brought from New England. And he goes on and on and on about it. And you continue to feast and eat. And all the while, what you notice is that the 3 members of the child's family and Mr. Cloudy are not here. Neither are the 2 men in suits and the woman who had written the letter. They seem to be gone. But Mr. Haley is not making anything out of this, and he hasn't even mentioned it. And all that he seems to be talking about is the quality of the food and how much he enjoys it, how much he delights in it.
You must have quite the food infrastructure here to bring it from another world. But this Manhattan certainly has no dominion over this chowder, I can say.
Have you been to New York, sir?
I have. It's not for me. Maybe it is for Harvard, though.
He nods as if he is very much in agreement. It is a fine area, but nothing compared to Hartford, I can tell you that. You are from New York City, is that correct, Mr. Dietrich?
That is correct, yes.
How is it that you can put up with those god-awful smells? No offense intended, of course.
It's because it's not all god-awful smells. It's balanced by plenty of amazing smells that are unique to New York.
That is true, sir. That is true. And you would have a very good job as a diplomat if you chose to pursue that vocation. Very, very good. And with that, he continues to eat, though, and you kind of get the feeling that he basically thinks you're full of crap, and he definitely prefers Hartford. Unless anyone wants to interrupt him, he's going to continue eating and continue pushing food on you.
This is
I am
fairly
not-
heavenly.
Yeah. I am not one to push aside food after my recent lifestyle, so I'll happily have breakfast number 2.
You can completely feel the hit points just coming back, surging through your body. You are recovering with each bite. So tell me, I gave you a lot of information last night. You may have questions for me, or you may have comments. Please feel free. I don't mean to talk all business, but I'm just wondering, how do 4 gents from the other side feel about all of this information? I expect that a few of you probably thought you would awaken in your beds after having eaten a rather terrible meal the night before, but unfortunately this place is real.
We may have dug in a bit on a topic of what this place is beyond what we're seeing and experiencing. For example, we've seen our seminarian friend just shatter glassware from across the room. This writing itself with these stylus, the fact that none of the devices we bring from our world to here seem to work.
Well,
So-
not all of them, that is. The ones based in fire. So you may notice that, of course, matches don't light and substances from the other side do not light, but they need to be laced with that powder we were talking about last night in order to truly reach their potential.
Then the nature of this powder. If it can't be analogous to our world, I'm not going to go back and snort gunpowder.
I would recommend that you not do that, sir. Gunpowder, no matter what universe you snort it in, is never a very good choice.
Quite so.
And so with that, you are free to ask him questions and to clarify any confusion you may have.
I've got a bunch, guys, but if you guys want to go first, that's fine.
You
Let's
can
do
go
it.
ahead.
Go for it.
Yeah.
I'm busy eating.
As you would expect.
So first I will say, so I was expecting to see our other guests from last night. Cloudy, the Childs, the other members. Where were they?
The child's family is in recovery. They are with what we call the Brotherhood of the Spider right now. That may come as it may sound like a frightening organization, but they're actually quite friendly, I can assure you. They are currently being fully rejuvenated. As you may have surmised, they were not truly dead, but secretly actually slumbering. A long hibernation over decades, if not a century or so, tends not to agree with a person. So they are in recovery right now. Mr. Cloudy, on the other hand, is attending to some morning business. And our young friend, the young boy, Pascale, oh, you know him as Pascal, is off visiting family and friends. He is actually from this side of Boston. And he winks when he says that and laughs.
Okay. We had discussions last night about BRooDs. Are BRooDs effectively the governing organizations of this side?
For the most
And
part,
how
yes,
does-
they are.
How does the society then interact with the BRooDs?
For the most part, these broods are like noble houses, is what you would call them. And these noble houses have their own kingdoms, which have evolved over time. There are essentially 15 different broods. 16 if you count the fierce brood, the exiled brood, the pariahs. And these are the larger houses. There are many smaller broods which have smaller kingdoms and rule over smaller areas. But these broods exist in a kind of equilibrium.
Okay, so then does the society cut across, of the Society of the Protection of New England Antiquities, does that cut across broods, or is it only within the one brood?
It's more complicated than that, but essentially, yes, we do cut across different broods. However, depending on which brood you are a part of, we are looked upon fondly or frowned upon. Unfortunately, at this moment, there are more broods that frown upon us than look upon us fondly.
And I guess the opposite is true of the Watch and Ward Society at the moment.
Exactly. You're starting to put the pieces together very nicely.
Are there any other societies besides those two?
Well, let's just say that there's a lot of politics that goes on here. So, for example, the powder that I mentioned. It is known by many names here in Vagaver, but the scientific name is encephalopowder. This encephalopowder is mined and harvested and refined by an organization called the Honorable BRooD Trading Company, or sometimes HBTC. They're essentially the controlling body for all distribution of this encephalopowder. And they control the supply of encephalopowder, which, as I mentioned last night, makes this world go round. There's another organizing body. There is the Transportation Guild. The Transportation Guild uses encephalopowder in order to power its great ships. These are not ships that you or I might be used to that travel across seas or, as has been discovered lately, fly through the air. These ships bend time and space. They allow travel between the four rings of Vagaver and to the moon of Vagaver. There's a pirates guild. There is an organization of scholars. There are many different guilds, which in time, should you choose to stay or should you choose to visit in the future, you will become aware of. But when I say that the war is complex, life is complex, society is complex, that would be an understatement. The Watch and Ward Society and the Society for the Preservation of New England Antiquities are but two organizations in a collection of organizations.
Okay. So how many broods are members, if you will, of the Society for the Protection of Antiquities?
Members, I would say at least 6 or 7 of them, at least in public. In private, I couldn't really say. I have an idea and a sneaking suspicion.
Okay. Which brood is Coatsworth a part of?
Ah, Mr. Coatsworth. We call him Mr. Codpiece, actually. And he chuckles at that. And he leans back as if he's just told a very, very funny joke. It's a long story, and perhaps sometime when we're not eating, I'll tell you the full story. Coatsworth is part of the Fierce Brood. However, he is a pariah even among the pariah of the Fierce Brood, a pariah among pariah. He has no true membership, but he has pledged loyalty to an organization, a secret organization, within the members of a group of a BRooD known as the Operati. The Operati live on the outermost ring of Vagaver. They are a group, a strange species. They're the color of coal, and when they smile, you can see the red lava-like glow within their gullets. They're enormous creatures, a creature I wouldn't want to face in a dark alley. But there are good creatures among them, to be sure. But the Operati BRooD, the Operati Kingdom, has, in the last few decades, twisted the facts, twisted history to meet their own needs, to serve the needs of their own government. Probably, I'm confusing you now. This is too much information.
Well,
Too much information.
Well, one last question then. One last question. How many of the 15 BRooDs then are non-human?
He leans back and laughs. Sir, none of them are human.
Okay.
I'm sorry, Mr. Murphy.
relating,
You look rather
to
awake
Coatsworth.
this morning, and that leads me
Yeah.
to believe you must have a question or perhaps detect food nearby.
No,
And I know the
I've
food's
gotten
here,
my
but I'm
full.
wondering about
I've
the
tucked
question.
in so much in the last few hours. No, regarding Coatsworth, my associates
Mr.
are
Codspeath.
yes, we're concerned that he might have become a permanent enemy to us, and that perhaps we won't even be safe in our realm, or however you want to call it.
Finishing up his meal, he leans back in his chair, lights a cigar, and sighs. Yes, sir, that is a concern, and for that I do apologize. If I had been able to tell you that, or if someone had been able to tell you that at the beginning of all of this, we certainly would. What you did back there was quite brave, but you have indeed made a new enemy. One thing I can say, however, is if you choose not to continue with us, I promise you, our agents on the other side will do what they can to protect and to help you. I make no guarantees, but I do promise that they will try. You have my word on that. But yes, you are right, sir. All four of you, should Mr. Coatsworth have gotten a good look at you each, all four of you are now in more danger than you might otherwise be.
Do you know where he's at now?
Last I heard, from what I was told by Mr. Cloudy, Mr. Dietrich here made a very good show of kicking Codpiece right in the face. Something which many of us over here on the other side would very much have enjoyed either seeing or doing personally ourselves. And he tips his cigar toward you, Mr. Dietrich. Where he is now, he disappeared into the manifold. Oh, the manifold. You might not know that, but the manifold is that space between space and that time between time. That place that you bent in order to get here. It's a place of information, of matter, a place of time. It's our future and our past. He's somewhere in there, and he's probably made it back, either to Earth or here to Vagaver. But make no mistake, you are right, Mr. Night Watchman. He will be looking for you, and as I said, we will do what we can to protect you.
Good to know. Thank you.
Steve, you're muted.
Mute, Steve.
You mentioned that Coatsworth was a member of the Fierce BRooD,
At one point,
yet-
yes.
and he defected.
He was removed.
Removed
was-
for ambitions.
Removed for ambitions, for practices and behaviors unbecoming of a gentleman. He was violent, angry, determined that the Fierce BRooD would have their revenge. So angry, in fact. Well, he did some rather terrible things. I don't want to darken our breakfast here, but he was removed. He was outcast. And now, though, he's anger within anger. Imagine having been kicked out with your tribe, sir, with your family. And then, once you reach your hiding spot, your family kicks you out from the safety and security of their presence. How would you feel? I cannot pretend to know how Mr. Coatsworth felt about that, but he is very much on his own side now. He works with the Watch and Ward Society, perhaps to undermine and destroy things around him, like a child lashing out on those with more power or those he is jealous of. You could say there is no logic, but at the same time there is. It's the logic of an angry child, and that is how I view our Mr. Coatsworth III.
Then what of the boy?
Okay.
He's uniquely powerful amongst all of you. I remembered something of the messenger, and is he such a person?
The boy is a member by lineage. He is also a citizen of this world, born here. He and his family are actually from here. However, in order to hide them safely, they are spread between here, Tremontaine, as we call this city, and your city of Boston. They are shadowy reflections of one another. What is true in one may not be true in another. Their geography is similar and yet different. The boy somehow is able to move between these two worlds, and he is quite powerful, and I suspect that is the reason why Mr. Coatsworth wanted to acquire him. A boy that moves so easily, a being that moves so easily between these two places could be quite valuable in this war. As you may have noticed, it took that snuff, it took that encephalopowder in order to get you from here to there and there to here. But that boy does not require the powder. That boy can bend and warp time and space without use of it. And I suspect that that is the way that he sends his messages.
Whose messages are these? His own?
From what I understand, he sent you each a message. Is that correct? These messages of stone that he sends.
Quite powerful message to appear on my person.
There is one more thing about the boy, and that is that he has an ability to sense those of us that are gifted or talented in ways that are not common among mortal men and the creatures that we find here in Vagaver. It is no coincidence that the four of you were called. He senses good. He senses evil. He senses powers and abilities. And that is how I knew that the four of you were special, and that the four of you could be trusted. Tell me, priest, seminarian, is there more to this glass-shattering ability? I don't believe that each one of you simply wields a silly parlor trick. I don't even have to think about it to know. Each one of you contains within you something. There's a reason that boy called you here. There's a reason he found each of you. Those stones did not appear in your pockets coincidentally. There is a method to that boy's madness. And now, you all, for now, have chosen the path of the Good Samaritan to help. And as a moral man, as a man old beyond his years, literally and figuratively speaking, I cannot ask you to go any further. I can ask you to think about it, to think about what you could do for us. My council, my group of friends and I, we have a need of creatures with your talents and abilities, and we could certainly use you in this war, but I cannot ask you to fight a war for a people that you are not a part of and for a world you were not born in. And so I offer you another few days of rest should you need it. But I also offer you a particular blend of that powder that will take you back to Boston to continue living your lives. I offer you the protection of those agents who will watch over you, and for that I do apologize. You are embroiled in something that you had no intention of getting mixed up in the first place. But this has happened, and there is nothing I can do about it. So I give you that choice. You can head back to Boston. You can stay here. Or you could do some mix of both. But if you do choose to stay here, I only ask that you allow me to show you things that might get you interested in joining our organization. You boys, think about it. And he leans back, takes a deep draw on his cigar, and his elevator pitch is over.
What is it that you actually need done? What is this war involved? What is your end game?
The end game is to protect imagination. protect progress, protect technology, protect the truth, to wipe out this virus, this pandemic, and to stop this war, and to finally bring some peace, and to bring back the FiERCE BRooD, to allow them into the daylight of this world, where they will not be persecuted, they will not be attacked, they will not be hunted, and they can live in peace. How long this will take, I do not know. I know that on your side, perhaps our side, that war is ending down, but that war is just the tip of the iceberg. And with a gentle push from this side, that war could be accelerated. I also know that influenza pandemic is at its height right now, from what you told me and what Cloudy told me as well. You may have noticed that some of the newspapers back there are not exactly telling you the truth about what's going on. Your perception of it might be quite different than the truth. Make no mistake, there are some agents from here working over there. And we want to get to the bottom of where they are and root those people out. This is a lot of information. A lot. And so I offer you another day or two if you want to stay here and think about it. I also offer you, again, the protection, should you choose to go back to Boston, of our agents over there. You boys think about it. Don't make any rash decisions. You're going to notice time moves a little bit differently between the two worlds. I think you already noticed that. From what Cloudy told me when you headed back, some time had passed. There's not much you can do about that as we are now, but with various blends of that powder, you can sometimes change some of these things. It's all up to you. And when he says that, he pulls out another case and he slides it into the center of the table and he pops the lid on it. And surprise, surprise, it's got 4 little packets in it. Each one looks like it probably contains some of this powder. And he explains to you that that is indeed what it is, and you can make your choices as to whether or not you want to use it. It will take you back to Boston at whatever time it is now, and he tells you that it's probably going to be late October, maybe even early November by the time you get back.
Well, I think we take the powder either way.
Either way.
We'll want to keep it with us for when we decide.
Absolutely.
Mm.
Thank you.
But I will let you know one thing here. Time ticks on. A few days here can be a few weeks over there. And it is late October as of now. And with each day those agents, like the roots of some big old tree, become deeper and deeper and deeper. It's your choice. So, I think with that, we have reached the end of tonight's adventure. Would anyone like to make a nomination for tonight? It didn't actually come up naturally.
I like James' connection of the metal Cipher object. That was a good connect, and then just his voice work and interesting flowery language.
Yeah, he was very much in character tonight, wasn't he?
Yeah.
I mean, he
was on
always
point.
is, but yeah,
In the house.
I felt it too. too.
Thanks.
All right. So in that case, we're going to give James an XP for that. As usual, everybody's going to get 4 XP for their work this evening. James gets an extra, a 5th one. With that, we will pick this up 1 week from tonight. Thank you all very much for joining us. We hope to see you then. Good night, everyone.